On April 16th, 2007, 23-year-old Sungwei Cho walked into his university in Blacksburg, Virginia, and killed 32 people with 2 semi-automatic pistols. He also injured 17 people who luckily managed to survive. Cho's story is, in my opinion, much more dramatic and depressing than other spree shooters such as Elliot Rodger and Adam Lanza. This shooting is also notable for its incredibly high body count. 32 confirmed kills is nothing to scoff at. That's really a lot of people. To give you an idea, here's a picture of all the people Cho killed that day. That's a lot of brutality in one place. This got me thinking. What was Cho like as a child? What could a person capable of these acts of violence be like as a child? What made Cho develop into the sociopathic murderer he became? Cho was born in 1984 in Asan, South Korea. By the time he was only 3 years old, he had already begun to showcase some problematic behavior. He would avoid all physical contact, he couldn't look people in the eyes, and he rarely spoke, even to his own parents. In fact, he didn't even look his parents in the eye if he could help it. Cho had a sister as well, but like Cho's parents, Cho rarely spoke to her either, though it was found later that he communicated with her the most. Cho emigrated with his family to Maryland when he was 8 years old, before moving to Virginia the year after. In elementary school, believe it or not, Cho wasn't bullied. In fact, he was well-liked, and was known to be well-versed in certain subjects like math. According to some articles, he was actually quite popular with girls even. This obviously would change as he entered middle and high school. Even though Cho wasn't bullied in elementary school, he'd still throw tantrums after school almost every day, stating that he didn't want to go back to school ever again. But then again, what child wants to go back to school? In 7th grade, Cho was forced to attend therapy at the recommendation of his teachers, as they recognized that something wasn't all there with him. Throughout 7th and 8th grade, Cho would draw really creepy and cryptic drawings of things like caves and tunnels during his therapy sessions, which apparently can signify depression and suicidal thoughts. I know art therapy is a real thing, but as someone who was in therapy in elementary, middle, and high school, I'm well aware of the staff members at a school overanalyzing stupid bullshit. It can be really frustrating as the patient, so I don't know how much I buy this. However, I really wish I had these drawings because they would add to this video immensely, but unfortunately, I can't find a trace of them anywhere. The reason Cho was in art therapy was because he, even in 8th grade, refused to talk to people. He would only mutter a few words every once in a while, but that was the scope of his communication abilities. Every once in a while, when Cho's therapist would explain the meaning of his art to him, Cho would actually cry. Shortly after the whole tunnel situation, Cho was made to take an IQ test, and it was found he actually had above-average intelligence. He was also diagnosed with selective mutism, which essentially inhibited his ability to speak to other people, though he could speak better and more clearly to certain people than others. In May of 1999, a month after Columbine, when Cho was finishing up the 8th grade, he wrote a paper that essentially said that he wished to recreate the Columbine shootings. The paper also expressed that he possibly had homicidal and suicidal tendencies. Keep in mind, he was 13. Cho's sister was actually immediately contacted after he read the paper, as she spoke English fluently. Cho's psychiatrist was extremely concerned about Cho's future, as Cho's sister was one of the only people that Cho regularly communicated with. Even though their conversations were short, Cho's therapist was thinking that since Cho's sister, Sung Kyung Cho, was leaving for college soon, that Cho would stop communicating with other people altogether. This theory unfortunately hit the nail on the head with a hammer. In late 1999, Cho started attending high school at Centerville High. Long story short, Cho was bullied quite heavily for his strange vocal inflection and dopey appearance. This caused him to fall further into a rabbit hole of depression and silence. Reportedly, Cho couldn't even respond in complete sentences anymore, and in fact was barely audible. He would only speak to teachers privately, and even then, all that he'd muster were quiet, nearly inaudible whispers. When Cho was forced to read in front of his class, Cho would read in a really creepy, deep, and raspy tone of voice. You can actually hear this in his manifesto.
You had 100 billion chances in the ways to have avoided today, but you decided to spill my blood. You forced me into a corner and gave me only one option.
After Cho's freshman year, he transferred to Westfield High. I bet Westfield High likes having that on their notable alumni list. Cho's grades were excellent. It was noted that he spent about 3 to 5 hours on homework every single day. He was known to hand in exceptionally well done assignments, and his relationships with his teachers were great. However, his social life and ability to make friends were non-existent. Cho was eventually put into a special needs program once the full extent of his mental disability came to light. Regardless of this, Cho maintained a GPA of 3.5. Cho also caused no issues during his stay at Westfield. In 11th grade, due to the fact that he was very nearly 18 years old, Cho stopped attending therapy and receiving mental health services. This would unfortunately lead to his downfall, as many like to say, though I honestly doubt that mental health services would have prevented the Virginia Tech massacre. In my opinion, some people are just too deep in a hole to be dug out. I guess what I'm trying to say is, Cho probably thought of his mental health services as a waste of time.
He planned this out very carefully. He's not delusional in what he did. He knew exactly what he was doing. I believe this young man probably started down a very sad path early on when he was a child. My guess is this plan had been brewing in his head for quite a long time.
Overall, Cho's early childhood and teenage years were very troubled, to say the least. So much so that some of his own family was scared of him and considered him to be a mute or severely mentally ill. Which was true, he was definitely severely mentally ill. That was just a quick introduction to Sung-Wei Cho and his early years of life. This part is the shortest part of all the parts that will be in this mini-series. I wanted to get his early life over with so we could get to the fun stuff in part 2. In the next part, we'll be taking a look at his early college years, which were when Cho's issues started to really showcase themselves. Cho stalked women multiple times, wrote cryptic messages on their dorms, took pictures of their legs without permission, and much more. So much more.